Do you hear that? That's supposed to be a bass guitar. But that smear, that weird ghosting in the background, that's artifacting. And if you've ever separated stems from an AI-generated music, you've heard this before. A lot of people think AI generates music like traditional recordings. Drums on one track, bass on another track. But AI doesn't work that way. AI generates the entire song all at once. Everything gets fused together from the very beginning. So when you separate stems afterward, you're not really extracting instruments. You're reverse engineering an audio illusion. And that's why it can sound so bad. The artifacts aren't the disease. They're the symptom. Because no stem separator can recreate music that was never there in the stem to begin with. At least not yet. So if you want cleaner AI stems, you don't start with a plugin. You start before you ever hit generate. My process comes down to 4 steps: prevent, separate, diagnose, and rebuild. And be sure to stick around for step 2 because there's a dirty little secret in the stem separator industry that most people don't know about. So step 1, prevent. Most stem problems start with the prompt, not the separator. Think about it. If you ask an AI for a massive cinematic rock anthem with giant reverbs and stacked synths and a wall of sound, it's going to sound great, but it'll probably separate terribly. To a stem splitter, all that complexity is just chaos. Now compare that to something like, dry, modern rock production. It's not as exciting, but it'll be much easier to separate and rebuild later. Over time, I've learned something. The coolest AI generation and the most useful AI generation are often 2 different things. And if your goal is to rebuild the song, always choose clarity over spectacle. You can always add effects later. Removing them is much harder. And before you go spending hours separating stems, you should ask yourself one very important question. Will the song you're going to separate still sound good with nothing but an acoustic guitar and a vocal? If the answer is yes, you've got something worth saving. I, for one, listen for songwriting. I listen for structure, melody, arrangement, and not production tricks. Because AI songs tend to drift towards the average. But every now and again, there's something genuinely great hidden underneath. Find those ideas first, then worry about stems. And speaking of stems, the separator market has a dirty little secret. A lot of products look different. A lot of products are branded different, but many of them are running the same engines underneath, which may mean you could be paying for the same thing twice if you're not careful. So to celebrate 2,000 subscribers, I put together a free AI stem guide that goes much deeper into this stuff. There's a link below. Now let's talk separation. Let's say you've prompted carefully. You found a song worth keeping, and now it's time to separate the stems. Can you just click Create Stems and move on? Sometimes, but there are trade-offs. More stems doesn't automatically mean better stems. And the more aggressively you separate the audio, the more opportunities there are for things to go wrong. Bass transients leak, drum attacks show up in strange places, stereo images get weird, phase relationships start falling apart, and the artifacting becomes more and more obvious. That's why I no longer rely on a single separator. I compare results, and I listen, and I use whatever works best for that particular song. One tool I've been using a lot is UVR5. Here it is right here. UVR5, or the Ultimate Vocal Remover. Not only is it free, it's open source, and it'll run locally. And if you're doing serious AI music work, it's worth having installed. Most DAWs now include a stem separator directly inside the software. They're convenient, and they're fast, and sometimes they do a surprisingly good job. Then there are the premium tools, like lalal.ai, RipX, and Spectral Layers. All of them are excellent. But here's the part that most people don't think about. Sometimes 2 completely different products are using the exact same underlying separation engine. For example, look at Ableton Live. It uses the Moises separation engine and runs locally. Now take the new Fender Pro 8.1 separation engine. It also uses Moises, but uses a more advanced version that works in the cloud. So before you pay for another subscription, figure out what's actually happening under the hood in your separation engine. Because once stems are separated, we arrive at that stage that matters most, the diagnosis. This is where a song either survives or dies. At this stage, I stop thinking like an editor and I start thinking like a producer. I solo every stem one at a time. But I'm not asking, does this sound clean? I'm asking, how am I going to recreate this? And that's a completely different mindset. Vocals usually come first, and most separation models can handle vocals reasonably well. In a human-in-the-loop workflow, they're often just guide tracks anyways. You might sing them yourself, you might hire a vocalist, or you might replace them completely. Next comes the drums. Drums are so easy to replace, there's absolutely no excuse not to replace them. Audio to MIDI conversion has gotten surprisingly good. Not perfect, but good enough to get you most of the way there. The bass is also similar, with pitch detection, audio to MIDI, melodyne, whatever gets you close. The goal isn't perfection, the goal is reconstruction. Then we get to things like guitars and synths, and this is where things get ugly. Rich harmonic instruments tend to separate poorly. Stems collapse, artifacts pile up, and MIDI extraction becomes almost impossible. So I don't fight it. I use my ears and I listen. I grab an instrument, find out what fits, and I replay the part. I just trust my ears. But here's something important. Not every stem deserves to survive. Sometimes the smartest production decision is deleting them entirely. The more stems you generate, the more garbage you create. Blank stems, ghost harmonics, blended layers, artifacts. Focus on what the song actually needs and keep those and delete the rest. And if the AI accidentally created something genuinely unique, save it. You might want it later. Step 4 is to rebuild. And this is where the work really begins. As I recreate parts, I mute and hide the original AI stems one by one. I don't delete them. I may use them later for timing, phrasing, or reference. But gradually, something interesting happens. The AI version starts to vanish, and a new version starts to emerge. And that one's actually mine. And if there's that unique AI element worth keeping, I just collapse it to mono, clean it up with some EQ, rebuild the space around it using modulation, delay, or reverb. That often fixes phase issues and helps it sit inside a real production. By the time I'm ready to mix, there should be very little or no AI audio left. The AI was only the seed. I built the song. Most musicians are skeptical of AI, and that's understandable. But AI isn't replacing musicians, it's changing the workflow. The people who will win won't be the ones generating songs. They'll be the ones who know how to transform those rough generations into finished music. That's why a human-in-the-loop workflow matters so much. And as copyright law continues to evolve, I think this approach will become more and more important. And if you're interested on how older technology helps shape today's AI copyright debates, click the video on the screen. And if you want to grab that free AI STEM guide, grab it below. Keep making music.